We are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. A reminder that this meeting is being live streamed. I'd also like to remind everybody by our acknowledgement that the Rainbow District School Board would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe, including Eti-Mikiching, Anishinaabe, and Winnipetai nations, who would like to acknowledge that we are situated within Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850, and I want to recognize the inherent rights of the Anishinaabe that maintain these lands from time immemorial. Director Bourget, could you do roll call, please?
Trustee Dubosky. Trustee St. Jean. Trustee Gibson.
Present.
Trustee Cosmerly. Trustee Morrison.
Present.
Trustee Dewar.
Present.
Trustee Hunda. I see Trustee Hunda online. I think there's some microphone problem. Trustee Stringer.
Present.
Trustee Clement.
Present.
And Student Trustee Yao. I do see Student Trustee Yao on screen.
There we go.
Thank you.
Is my mic not working?
It is now, Judy.
Okay, thank you.
Approval of the agenda, that we have a motion that the agenda for the special board meeting of May 3rd, 2022 be approved. I need a mover. Trustee Gibson, and a seconder, Trustee Stringer. Poll vote, Director.
Trustee Clement.
In favor.
Trustee Dewar.
In favor.
Trustee Gibson.
In favor.
Trustee Hunda.
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly.
In favor.
Trustee Morrison.
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
And Student Trustee Yao.
In favor.
All in favor, Chair Clement?
Declaration of pecuniary interests. I see none. C is presentations. We have none. D, report from in-camera committee of the whole board in camera. We have none. Whole business. Number one, motion that the minutes of the regular board meeting held on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 be approved. I need a mover, please. Judy Cosmerly. Seconder, Judy Hunda. Poll vote, Director.
Trustee Clement.
In favor.
Trustee Dewar.
In favor.
Trustee Gibson.
In favor.
Trustee Hunda.
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly.
In favor.
Trustee Morrison.
In favor.
Trustee Stringer.
In favor.
Student Trustee Yao.
In favor.
All are in favor, Chair Clement?
Thank you, Director. Tenders, requests, and proposals, I see none. Now, number three, reports and recommendations from board committees. The Audit Committee. Who would like to speak to this, please?
Chair Clement, I will turn this over to Trustee Morrison and I think Superintendent Bazinet for comments. They've done a tremendous amount of hard work and I want to thank them up front for all they do.
Thank you. Trustee Morrison. Your mic is off, Trustee Morrison.
Thank you. Switched screens too quickly. My apologies. Pleased to report on behalf of the Audit Committee that we had the opportunity to review the financial statements with Derek D'Angelo from KPMG yesterday. This is normally a process, as I believe trustees are aware, where the Audit Committee would be doing this in December after the completion of the audited statements, which is usually done by the end of November, early December. But this year, of course, because of the transiting to the new student data system, there was a delay in confirming the data, and trustees are aware that considering that most of our funding, meaning revenue, comes as a result of our enrollment numbers, we wanted to make sure that the time was taken to make sure that those figures were as accurate as possible. And so I too want to add my thanks to Director Bourget, to Superintendent Bazinet, to Nancy Chikota, the finance manager, to all the finance staff, to the ITIS staff who also helped complete this, and to the school level staff who really helped to fill that data system for us. And as a result, we had the opportunity to review the financial statements yesterday. We're going to get to that as a board in a couple of minutes. The committee has absolutely no qualms about recommending to the board approval of the financial statements based on the presentation and the questions we had. But I also wanted to share with other board members, this is the time, usually it's December, but we're having to do it a little later this year, where we share with the board the Audit Committee annual report. And this is for the year ended on August 31st, 2021. I have asked Cindy to share hard copies of this with all of you by email so that you have your own copies to look at and to keep for your own records. But basically the annual report includes the Audit Committee members and who they were. That was myself, and I acted as chair this year. Trustee Margaret Stringer, Trustee Judy Hunter were the other two trustee members. And we also had Frank Chinati and April Lukacek, who is also external members on our Audit Committee. In addition, we also have regular attendees, which would include the Director of Education, the Superintendent of Business, the Manager of Finance, who we all know was Karen Cosman, is now Nancy Chikota as of September 21st, 2021. We also had Cindy with us as the recording secretary, and Derek D'Angelo from KPMG. He's the lead audit engagement partner, and he will be presenting the financial statements to us all this evening. Melissa Dodge also normally attends, and she's the Regional Internal Audit Manager. We wanted to report to all of you that the following administrative tasks were completed during the 2021 fiscal year. We updated the internal audit plan and the multi-year internal audit plan. We had 2 meetings during the year, and this is the only thing that wasn't according to standards. We should be meeting a minimum of 3 times a year. But this year, this wasn't COVID related. It was related again to the data delay in our ability to complete those financial statements. So normally we would have met in December. We weren't able to. So last year we met only December 7th, 2020 and September 21st, 2021. We did establish quorum for all meetings. And in the Audit Committee's case, quorum means at least 2 of the 3 trustee reps and at least 1 of the 2 external reps have to be there to have quorum. We assessed the performance of our external auditors, KPMG, our internal auditors. We completed an audit, which was on privacy and education software. A draft report is issued. The work on that still is continuing. Planned audits, there should have been an update on our risk assessment for the board. That was carried forward to 21-22, so to the following year due to COVID. Summary of the work performed. In addition to the items that I've just listed, the following outlines further work that was performed by the Audit Committee in the last 12 months. We recommended the 2021 external audit plan to the board for approval, and trustees may remember that came to us for approval. We evaluated the performance of the external auditors. We received the 2020-2021 Northeastern Ontario Regional Audit Internal Audit Report. We evaluated the performance of the Regional Internal Audit Team. We completed the Audit Committee Self-Assessment Questionnaire, and we reviewed all ministry correspondence. The committee itself approved this annual report, And so I signed it on behalf of the audit committee, and I'm honored to present it on their behalf to the board. And as I said, hard copies will be coming by email. We just completed this last night, so Cindy will be sending us all shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Morrison. There was indeed a lot of work put into this. So, Director Bourget, we'll go to Superintendent Bazinet, I take it? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Clement. Pleased to present to you this evening our consolidated financial statements for the fiscal year that ended August 31st, 2021. And as Trustee Morrison alluded to, this typically would be occurring at our December meeting, and due to the delays with transitions of our student information system, we have finally in a position to present these to you this evening. And here to present our statements is Derek D'Angelo, who is our lead engagement partner from KPMG, who are our external auditors. And we will be presenting and displaying the financial statements on screen for those who are participating live stream. And all trustees would have received a copy emailed to them earlier today. So once Derek has completed his presentation, I do have a few comments I'd like to meet prior to the motion being reviewed and voted upon. Thank you and welcome, Derek.
Thank you. We have, I think, a hand up here, Trustee Morrison. Your mic, Trustee Morrison.
Sorry, I just turned it off when it was on. My apologies. Just want to say at our audit committee meeting yesterday, we had, of course, the audit committee members and our external, including external auditors and KPMG, but we also had two people who were attending as guests yesterday. And welcome and thank you for participating. We had Trustee Bob Clement and Trustee Anita Gibson, who also attended as this was a virtual meeting. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Trustee Morrison. And good evening, Derek. You have the floor.
Good evening, all. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the consolidated financial statements for the Rainbow District School Board for the year ended August 31st, 2021. As mentioned, the financial statements were reviewed by the audit committee yesterday and were recommended to the board for approval. During the course of my presentation, I'll provide an overview of the relevant points and any significant changes from 2020. If there are questions, just please feel free to ask at the time. I'll do my best to answer, and if required, management will also add their comments.
Derek, if you don't mind, if we could go up maybe another 10% or so on the printing, we can't see it.
Okay.
That's better, thank you.
No problem. So if we could turn to the independent auditor's report, please. Thank you very much. So the first section of the independent auditor's report is the opinion paragraph. And what this does is this identifies the statements that have been audited and also gives our opinion on the accompanying financial statements. So for the year ended August 31st, 2021, we've given a clean or unqualified audit opinion for the financial statements. And the financial statements will be dated May 3rd, assuming they are approved at tonight's meeting. The third section of the report, which is the emphasis of matter paragraph, it's just down a little bit, there it is. What this is this describes the basis of accounting and highlights any significant differences between this basis and Canadian public sector accounting standards. This is all found in Note 1A to the financial statements, and there's a lot of detail in there, which we'll look at later. On the next page, which is the fourth section of the report, which is the management's responsibility paragraph. What this paragraph does is this describes the responsibility of management and those charged with governance in the preparation of the financial statements. And it details that management is responsible to develop and maintain a system of internal control that's necessary to ensure the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. The final section, or the auditor's responsibility paragraphs, This describes what the auditor's responsibilities are in expressing an opinion on the financial statements. We have to ensure that our audit is conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, requiring us to comply with ethical requirements and to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We obtain evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. We use our professional judgment, including assessing risks, considering the internal controls relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. We evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies used and the reasonableness of the accounting estimates made by management. And we evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. So turning to page 1, which is the consolidated statement of financial position. The consolidated statement of financial position details the financial position of the board at a point in time, that time being August 31st, 2021, with the comparative figures for August 31st, 2020. It would include the cash resources of the board, the net debt position, which is calculated as the difference between its financial assets and its financial liabilities, the non-financial assets, such as prepaid expenses and tangible capital assets, and the accumulated surplus. So looking at the financial assets first, at year end, the balance in cash or in the bank accounts was $17 million. And I'm just going to talk in round numbers to make things easier. Was $17 million, up from $15.5 million in 2020. The change in cash is directly related to the results of operations for the year, the capital activities, as well as activity in accumulated surplus and reserves, which we'll review a little later on. Accounts receivable other, that's $27.3 million this year. And the balance is mainly comprised of municipal tax revenue that's receivable, delayed grant receivables from the ministry, HST recoverable from the Government of Canada, and receivables from receivable from the Transportation Consortium. This year, there's a significant decrease in the municipal tax revenue receivable. That was $11 million last year. It's $4 million this year. This decrease is primarily the result of the province granting an extended education property tax deadline last year to the municipalities in response to COVID-19. These delayed installment payments were received in December of 2020. Also, starting in the 2018-2019 fiscal year, the ministry introduced a cash management strategy whereby the ministry delayed a portion of the grant payments to the school boards based on a calculation, and the delayed grant payments are included in the receivables from the ministry at August 31st. This year was $21 million, up from last year's balance of $16 million. The accounts receivable for approved capital funding, you can see is $52.4 million. This is a receivable from the province based on how grants are paid to school boards for capital. The grants are approved by the ministry and the board and are directly related to the debt incurred for capital construction. Investments are virtually unchanged from the prior year at $532,000. So total financial assets are again around $97.2 million. Looking at the financial liabilities, the first one is the temporary borrowing at $2.4 million. This amount relates to interim financing for construction costs for school improvement projects. The ministry funds these construction costs twice per year based on the actual expenses and also provides funding for any interest incurred. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities has decreased from $26.6 million to $20.3 million. And this is really because in 2020, there was an advance from the ministry of $8.8 million in response to the extended education property tax deadlines that was provided to municipalities. So the municipalities were allowed to delay their payments, but the ministry funded that amount. And this amount again was repaid in January of 2021. The net long-term liabilities have decreased from $42.5 $5 million to $40.4 million, a decrease of $2.1 million. And this is due to the fact that our semi-annual payments were made with the Ontario Financing Authority and RBC. The total long-term liabilities of $40.4 million is approved by the Ministry and the Board. Deferred revenue is $14.6 million, or up from $11.3 million. This would be on page 12 in your financial statements, but it's the very next slide. So if we can move to the next slide, I can talk about it, please. Perfect. So deferred revenue consists of various amounts received by the board that are restricted for specific purposes in accordance with ministry guidelines. So looking at the special education deferred revenue amount, this deferral of $6.7 million is up from last year of $5 million due to an increase in the special incidents portion, the special education per pupil amount, and the differentiated special education needs funding, as well as underspending due to COVID-19. The proceeds of disposition deferred revenue amount has gone down around $285,000, and this is due to the fact that the ministry approved applying additional costs for the Signac Public School project and having those funds come out of the proceeds of disposition deferred revenue. Pupil accommodation has increased to $4.1 million, and this is a carryover at August 31st and will be used for planned projects in fiscal 21-22. Student achievement and the Indigenous education programs, these are just up because of unspent contributions received and will be used in 21-22. The amounts restricted by external contributions, this has increased around $550,000. In 2021, the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services provided boards with PPE that was used for COVID-19. And the remaining inventory of PPE at August 31st, 2021, which includes things like hand sanitizer, isolation gowns, and things like that, this amount was included in inventory and deferred revenue and will be allocated to expenses in 21-22. So if we can return back to the statement of financial position, which is just the next slide. Perfect. So looking at deferred capital contributions, that ends the year at $197.7 million. Deferred capital contributions include grants and contributions received that are used for the acquisition and development of tangible capital assets. The increase of $11 million is due to a net addition of $26.7 million, offset by revenue recognized in the period of $15.7 million. And the last financial liability is the employee future benefits liability. And as you can see, it's virtually unchanged from the prior year. This note, it's a very detailed note in the financial statements. It covers around 4 pages from pages 12 to 15. But really the note just provides details of the board's long-term obligation for retirement benefits, which is the future cost in today's dollars of items like retirement gratuities, the cost of having retirees on the board's benefit plans, and WSIB. These amounts are calculated by the actuaries. They use employee demographics and information about the board's benefit plans to arrive at this future obligation as at August 31st, 2020. And as mentioned, that amount increased $53,000 in 2021 due to some actuarial gains and benefits paid, offset by interest costs and current period benefit costs. So our total financial liabilities are $287 million, up from $280 million. Looking at the non-financial assets, you can see the inventory, which is $512,000, and that ties into what I was talking about for the deferred revenue. This is our inventory of PPE on hand at August 31st, 2021. The prepaid expenses are $2.6 million at year end, just up from last year of $2.3 million. And the majority of that relates to the timing of payments for secondary teachers' wages. In 2021, The 2021-22 secondary teachers' first pay was on August 27th as per the collective agreement, and therefore is recorded as a prepaid expense. And the final non-financial asset is the tangible capital assets, and that amount is up around $11 million this year, ending the year at just under $218 million. And these tangible capital assets are non-financial assets that are used to provide school services or are used in administrative purposes or for the maintenance and repair of other tangible capital assets. The total additions to the capital asset pool were $27.7 million in 2021, offset by amortization of the assets of $16.5 million. If we can turn to the next page, please. So the next page is the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. And this provides information about the board's accountability for its operations and related achievements of its objectives. The statement also reports the surplus or deficit from operations and measures the change in the board's accumulated surplus in the period. Looking at the revenues, total revenues have increased from $203 million to $217 million, an increase of around $14 million. The increase is mainly comprised of an increase in the grant for student needs of approximately $7 million. A portion of this was as a result of last year's grants being lower than normal due to a $2.6 million savings as a result of the strike in the 1920 fiscal year. Also, there was around a $1.3 million increase in support for student funds in 2021. Other fluctuations in revenues, there was a $5.5 million increase in other revenue. The majority of this is government grants, $4.9 million being COVID funding. There was a $3.3 million increase in the amortization of deferred capital contributions, ending the year at $15.7 million. There was an increase in revenue from other school boards of around $554,000, an increase in other fees and revenue of approximately $626,000. And we can see that the school fundraising revenue has decreased around $2.1 million. That is due to the pandemic. Not many fundraising activities were allowed to occur. So really that really tells you about the major increases or decreases in the revenue, which comprise your $14 million increase for the year. Total expenses have also increased by approximately $13.1 million and end the year at $212.5 million, up from last year, $199.4 million. There was an increase in instructional costs up to $154.2 million. That's a $9.2 million increase. Again, just like the revenue side for the grant, there was strike savings in 2020, and that was around $2.6 million. There was a $1.3 million increase in the local priorities positions, a 1% wage increase, $1.9 million for additional teaching staff for remote learning, $950,000 of increase in the amortization, and that was due to the ministry changing the computer hardware useful life from 5 years to 3 years, which increased the amount that's amortized on an annual basis. Administrative costs increased around $265,000. Transportation actually decreased from cost by $586,000. Pupil accommodation increased around $4.7 million. Approximately $2.1 million is our pandemic-related costs in that increase, and the other amount is around $2.4 million increase in amortization of our tangible capital assets. Finally, our school-generated funds, they decreased from $2.8 million to $932,000 for the similar reasons that our revenue decreased. The other expenses, that's a new line item for this year, and it's at $1.4 million. There were some I mentioned before about the PPE that was included in inventory. Well, some of it was actually used during the year and has to be expensed, and that was around $800,000. And there was also the purchase of HEPA filters during the year, which was around $517,000. So this left us with an annual surplus for the year of $4.5 million, compared to last year at $3.6 million. And I'd just like to go through a little bit more detail on that, and we can find that in note 14, but it's the very next slide, if that helps. Perfect. So the accumulated surplus consists of quite a few pieces. I'm going to go through the highlight of what had changed, the main pieces of the change. So there was a $513,000 net increase in reserves for committed capital, student-focused initiatives, Indigenous education initiatives, local priority funds, and capital planning. There was a $1.7 million reduction in the unavailable for compliance reserves for employee future benefits, and $127,000 net decrease in the other unavailable for compliance reserves. The last two reserves that I mentioned are not available to balance the budget, as those reserves are externally appropriated. The balance of $2.2 million was transferred to the unappropriated operating accumulated surplus, and you can see that it's increased from $8.2 million to $10.4 million. This concludes my portion of the presentation of the financial statements. Again, willing to answer any questions, and I believe Superintendent Bazinet has some additional comments to make.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. Good presentation. Thank you. Director Burchett.
I'll turn it over to Superintendent Bazinet at this time.
Thank you. Superintendent Bazinet.
Thank you. Could you please display again, Doris? So essentially, I just want to thank Derek for his presentation once again, very thorough, and certainly we had a lot of detail at the audit committee where we really dissected and went through all the notes in great detail, so it was very informative. I just want to draw your attention to the accumulated surplus in that when we look at what is truly perhaps of interest to trustees, I'd like to draw your attention to two values. One is in the middle of the page where we see the Student Focus Initiative, which is just under $1.8 million. And trustees will recall that this reserve was established several years ago. And whenever we are considering initiatives to enhance programming and services for students, essentially it is the reserve that we look to for a funding source. And that value of $1.8 million remains available for trustee decision-making as it relates to these initiatives. So that's an important figure for you to be aware that it exists. And these are where, when we have internal discussions about wanting to consider any pilot programs, we often talk about whether or not it would be appropriate to request the use of these reserves. The second value I want to draw your attention to is the very top one, the $10.4 million, as Derek has alluded to. It has increased from 8.2 to 10.4. So when we talk about our ending operating surplus, we talk essentially that this reserve has increased at the end of the year, August 31st, 2021, by $2.2 million. So that is an important value to recall, as well as this is the value that would be used, this reserve, whenever we talk about the need to balance budgets, whenever we are projecting or if we were to realize an actual deficit at year end. But this value also remains under the direct control of trustees for initiatives as well for enhanced programming and services to our students. So I think those are the two values that I would ask that you take away from this whole accumulated surplus display, because there are many components, as Derek has alluded to, but those are two that would be of particular interest to trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Bazinet. We go to 2021 financial statements. Did we not just do that, Director?
If I may, Chair Clement, perhaps we're just asking whether or not trustees would have any questions for Derek on his presentation prior to reading and voting on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Trustee Morrison.
No questions. I was going to move the motion when we're ready for it. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Cosmony.
Just one question through you, Chair Clement, regarding the investment income that was, I think, a couple of slides back. There's been a drop from 251.9 thousand to 70.1. Just wanted to know if you have any notes, or if you could talk a little bit about that.
Certainly. That is purely down to the interest rates we saw during fiscal 21. The interest rates were lower than they were in the prior years. So it's purely just due to an interest rate issue during that fiscal year.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions on this report? I see none. We can move on. We'll go to the motion then. And the motion states that the 2020-21 financial statements be approved. Mover is Trustee Morrison. Seconder, Trustee Stringer. Any questions on the motion? I see none. Poll vote, Director.
Trustee Clement,
In favor?
Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Hunda,
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee Stringer,
In favor.
Student Trustee Yao.
In favor.
Motion is carried, Chair Clement.
Thank you. We go to new business, request for leave of absence. That I think Linda DeBossier and Carrie St. Jean be granted leave of absence for May 3rd, 2022 board meetings. A mover, please. Trustee Cosmerly. And a seconder, Trustee Stringer. Any questions? Poll vote, Director.
Trustee Clement,
In favor?
Trustee Dewar,
In favor?
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Hunda,
In favor?
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee Morrison,
In favor?
Trustee Stringer,
In favor.
and Student Trustee Yao.
In favor.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, Director. We go right to Director's remarks. Director?
Thank you, Chair Clement. I will keep my comments brief tonight. As last time we met, I had several updates on a tremendous amount of work that's in progress. But I'd like to start by thanking all members of the Finance Department. As Trustee Morrison alluded to, this not only extends to the Finance Department and the fine work under the leadership of Manager Chiquetto and Superintendent Bazinet, but also into our schools because of the challenges of going through changing platforms to Aspen and the data requirements that our office staff and our schools really had to work hard to meet. So tonight is a celebration of all that hard work, and I'd like to recognize them for that hard work. I'd also like to keep in mind that as we move forward, that we're only working through last year's, and we still have a tremendous amount of work in the next couple months to finish off this year and prepare for next. So I thank our finance department in advance and our schools for the continued hard work, because the hard work is not done. We've reached a milestone, but our journey is not complete to be where we want to be by the end of this school year. So huge appreciation to all of our school staff, Superintendent Basnet, Manager Chiquetto, and everyone involved. A couple quick updates for you just to celebrate. April showers might have brought us May flowers, but May flowers are going to bring us June graduations, which are right around the corner. And trustees, for those who are available and can attend, please expect that you'll receive invitations for your consideration to attend our face-to-face graduations this year. We're very excited about that. In addition, many school activities continue. For example, spring sports. I know today that track meets were occurring on school basis at Laurentian University. I understand the McLeod Mustangs had a wonderful day, and the sunny weather ahead will only make it even more fun for the schools that follow. Also like to acknowledge the hard work of everybody on preparation for our census that's coming in the fall. There'll be more details to come, as you know, but Superintendent Noble has done tremendous work with our equity committee, consulted a variety of stakeholders, and it is not easy work to do, and it is a tremendous amount of work to do. So I want to express my gratitude to her and also to Nicole Schret and Jen Bada for some of the work to help make the census come to life, and also to make sure that we have rainbow initiatives on it. So lots of good work there. We appreciate that. And also, last thing I'd like to share before I just say thanks to everyone is that when we meet again, we'll be celebrating some of our many, many amazing staff. Everybody deserves an award these days for everything that everyone's done through the pandemic, but we certainly want to take a chance and the opportunity at our next meeting to celebrate some very fine people who've done tremendous work this year as well. So we look forward to the upcoming board awards at an upcoming meeting. And that's the end of my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate it. We'll go to number 3, OPSPA Director. Any comments?
I do, thank you. I keep thinking it's going to be you speaking, Chair
We're getting
Clement.
used to that, huh?
Yeah. I attended an OPSPA Board of Directors meeting on this past weekend on April 29th and 30th. My notes from the meeting have been sent out to the trustees, and I want to thank Cindy Whitson for doing that for me. But there's a couple of pieces that I would like to highlight right now. First, that the Board of Directors approved a new vision, mission, and values for OPSPA. The new mission is the Ontario Public School Board Association advocates for public education in Ontario. The vision, OPSPA will be public education's expert voice, promoting a high-quality equity system focused on improving every student's success and well-being. OPSPA's values are equity, diversity, and inclusion, truth and reconciliation, valuing student voice, quality and innovation, environmental stewardship, and good governance, accountability, collaboration, and integrity. The Board of Directors also approved the OPSPA operating budget for 2022-2023. Of note is that membership dues for school boards will not increase next year. OPSPA has a sizable reserve fund. I bring that to your attention, and I ask you to take a look at my notes as well. And a policy is being drafted regarding the amount of funds that should be held in reserve and how these funds should be used. The Board of Directors also approved 10 recommendations that came out of the recent equity, diversity, and inclusion audit that was undertaken at OPSPA. 6 of the recommendations pertain to an expanded mandate for the Indigenous Trustees Council, and 4 to the establishment of a Black Trustees Caucus. We also approved a motion that the Board of Directors orientation include professional learning on diversity, equity, inclusion, systemic racism, and all forms of oppression, and that this training occur annually. The professional learning material will be made available to all boards for their use. Finally, a reminder that the annual general meeting will be held in Ottawa on June the 9th to the 11th for anyone who wants to attend. At that time, elections will be held for executive and regional positions within the organization. There are also 6 member board resolutions that will be going forward for approval at the AGM. I'll be in touch with trustees for their input regarding these motions in the near future. At this time, OPSPA is not offering a hybrid virtual in-person model for attendance at meetings because it's cost prohibitive. We are told it was about $18,000 to $20,000 a pop to have virtual and in-person at the same time. However, several trustees requested that this method of delivery be further explored, including looking at other venues than the ones we currently use to see if they can offer us that way of doing business for a cheaper cost or at a cheaper cost. So we'll see what happens. And that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cosmony. Any questions for Trustee Cosmony? I have one. I'd like to also then find out the cost then of all the trustees from the north going to that meeting. How much is that going to cost? I'd like to see the offset of that between the two. Thank you. Student trustee Michael Yao.
So as you, as you may know, Thursday is our conference, Stand Up Speak Out. It's going to be in person. I'm super, super excited for it. Our senators have been working very, very hard the past couple weeks, months, days, planning this conference. There's just a few little last minute things we got to get done, and then we're all good to go. So we're all super, super excited for it. I think it's just crazy to think that we're able to host this in person, considering 2 months ago, we were like full on ahead virtual. And then here we are ready to have around 100 students in an auditorium, an amphitheater. So I'm super, super excited for that. I really can't wait for it. And on that note, I'll also talk about an initiative that our Student Senate has been working on for the past couple months as well. It started around in February. We collaborated with a nonprofit organization in Ontario called Be the North. You might have heard of them, but they're federally registered, they're youth-led, and they fight for menstrual equity and just overall fight for menstrual equity and period poverty and the stigma around periods within Ontario. So we collaborated with them and we hosted menstrual donation drives within every high school within the board. So I was able to count the amount of products that we collected, and I'm happy to say that we had a total of 846 period products that are going to be donated to the Sudbury Women's Center. I think on Monday I'm going to be going in with a couple boxes. And Manitoulin as well did their own separate thing where they'll be donating to their local center as well as their wellness locker that is in their high school. So yeah, that was a super good initiative that we did, and I'm really, really happy to say that we raised that many products to be donated, and yeah.
That's great news, Michael. Thank you. Do you have anything else?
Not really. That's mostly the gist of it. I'm really just excited for the conference, honestly. I think that's the one thing that's keeping me up. But yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be something. Okay. Trustees, any trustees have any comments? I see Judy Honda, Trustee Honda.
Thank you, Chair Clement. Just really quickly, I just want to affirm how hard our senators have worked on this conference. They are very excited. And if any of you are available on Thursday, we would love you to drop by. It's at Gamerin College. And we would love you to drop by and see some of our amazing speakers and presentations that they have set up. And other than that is that I am feeling a little peppier today because I kind of had my 1st of May. For the first time in 2 years, I overcame my old lady fears and ventured off to one of my favorite things to do, and that is visiting teachers and students and parents. I spent a wonderful day at Princess Anne Public School with my granddaughter for a reading picnic. And I want to take the time just to thank all our staff for the amazing job that they did for Education Week. There's all kinds of exciting things going on. And when I walked in there, it is amazing to see for the first time in a long time happy faces, happy staff. It is, it really truly, I always found as a trustee, it gives me a lot of initiative, and it reminds me why I like doing this job and what it's all about. So just wanted to share that as much as I'm afraid, I think it's onward and upward and away we go. And sometimes you've got to kind of take that step to get back the enjoyment in your life. So I had a great time. And again, I want to thank the staff for all the work they've done.
Thank you, Trustee Honda. Anybody else have a comment? I see. We'll go straight to the chair's comments. I have a few here. As part of ABL's Public School Speaker Series, the ABL School Council will present Reading Makes Kids Smart for local author Paul Tufalo on May 5th at 6:30. This online presentation is the second of a 3 in a speaker series being presented by the school with a Parents Reaching Out grant. The link to register is available on ABLS website. Everyone is welcome. Kindergarten orientation throughout this month. Rainbow Elementary Schools will host in-person kindergarten orientation sessions for children starting school this fall and their parents, guardians. This is an opportunity for children and parents, guardians to meet their educators, tour the school, visit the kindergarten classroom, connect with their classmates, and get excited about starting school this fall. A list of dates and times is posted on the school website. Here are a few ways our vision, mission, values, and priorities are coming to life in schools in Rainbow. Kindergarten students from Chelmsford Valley District School Composite learned about egg incubation and hatching. Students in grade 1 to 6 took part in RLBD Public Schools' first ever chess tournament. Grade 3 students from Cyril Varney Public School raised $520 for Busy Bees charity through a book sale. This charity provides food for individuals experiencing homelessness. Canadian Women's Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Johnson surprised kindergarten students at McLeod Public School with a visit before returning to Calgary. Students from Monetteville Public School took a virtual trip to Fanshawe Village to learn about winter life for early settlers and how important partnerships with First Nations people are to their survival. All students from Lansdowne Public School joined together in a virtual sing-along of music and our medicine on Music Monday. Art students from Espanola High School have donated pieces of neurological art for auction. Half of the proceeds will support students, artists, and the other half will go to charity. Art is available for viewing and bidding on the school's Facebook page. Grade 10 science students from Llewellyn Park applied their knowledge of covalent chemical bonds to make tie-dyed shirts in class. Staff and students from Lockerbie Composite School raised $15,000 for Health Science North in support of pediatric cancer care in the North. Important dates. Rainbow Schools are hosting events for Education Week and Children's Mental Health Week, which started yesterday. On Thursday, May 5th at 7 p.m., parents, guardians can tune in to Parenting for Positive Mental Health presentations by Amanda Lamb, Director of the Center for Family Initiatives at the Pine River Institute. Visit rainbows.ca to register. The final Parent Involvement Committee meeting for the school year is on May 10th at 7 p.m. The next meeting, board meeting, will be May 17th, and that's not too far away. The agenda includes an introduction to this year's board awards recipients. We welcome this opportunity to recognize the values contributed to our employees and our community partners. And again, I pick a little quote here for the end, and it's going to be about Education Week and Children's Mental Health Week, which started yesterday. Quote, anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. Fred Rogers, otherwise known as Mr. Rogers. Thank you, everyone. We go to information and proposals, reports from officials and staff, non-staff communications, and anything you want to find out, go to our website. Future meetings, especially the one that's coming up, and it seems like it's just really close, is our next board meeting, which is May 17th. So put that on your calendar. And all we have left is adjournment. So I need a mover, please. Trustee Doer, and a seconder, Trustee Hunda. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Have a good evening.